In the summer of 1947, something came down outside Roswell, New Mexico. We've argued about what it was for nearly 80 years. The government said a weather balloon. Conspiracy theorists said an alien spacecraft. But the part nobody talks about is what happened after the crash. One of the beings recovered from that crash site survived for 11 days. A gray, as witnesses described it. Not a corpse. Not a specimen. Something alive. Something that, according to a man named Sergeant Harold Creech, communicated before it died. Not to scientists. Not to generals. To him. A guard. Creech was standing alone in a corridor at 2 in the morning. A facility whose name has never appeared on a single declassified document. He was there to guard a steel door. Gray. No number. No placard. No designation of any kind. Located at the end of a corridor in a supplementary medical annex, somewhere within or adjacent to Walker Air Force Base. He was assigned to stand outside the door for 7 nights before anything happened. 7 nights of nothing. Just the hum of equipment. The smell of industrial solvent. The silence of a place that wasn't supposed to exist. And then, on the 8th night, the humming stopped. And in the silence that followed, he heard something he couldn't explain. Not a voice. Not exactly. He described it as a pressure behind his eyes. The sensation before you sneeze, except it didn't pass. It built. And then it organized itself into something coherent. Something that felt like receiving a telegram from inside your own skull. An external intelligence using the interior architecture of his mind as a relay station.
This isn't the kind of detail someone fabricates. When people make up stories, they describe bright lights and cosmic significance. Creech told his researcher about a blister on his heel. About a water stain on the ceiling. About the smell of industrial solvent. He was thinking about his blistered heel when the contact began. That's the detail that makes me lean forward. Fabricators smooth things out. They don't include the blister. They don't include the mundane discomfort of a guard standing in a hallway for hours on end. Creech included all of that. And then he described something that changed him forever. The contact lasted approximately 4 minutes. He knew because he checked his watch immediately after and again when the night supervisor came by. 4 minutes that felt like seconds and a lifetime simultaneously. The content resolved into 3 impressions. Not words. Not sentences. Impressions. Like the memory of a dream that hasn't faded yet. The first impression was spatial. An image of a location. Not a planet or a star system, something more immediate. He described it as a place underground that doesn't appear on any map because it isn't underground here. Here. What does that mean? Underground where? Underground when? A different layer of reality altogether? The second impression was the one that haunted him most. Emotional rather than visual. A feeling like enormous sadness. Not the kind you feel for yourself. The kind you feel for someone else. Grief, except pointed outward. Like it was sad for us. Like whatever was behind that door looked at him and mourned. A non-human intelligence dying in a steel room in New Mexico extended its final transmissions outward and chose to communicate grief. Not a location. Not a warning. Not a revelation. Grief. For us. Why? Why grief? Why directed at a 24-year-old sergeant from Odessa, Texas? What did it see in him that warranted that response? The third impression was the most complex. He described a sense of finality, but not the finality of death. The finality of erasure. Something being deliberately removed from existence. Not destroyed. Removed. The way you don't just throw away a file, you shred it. You ensure it cannot be reconstructed. He used the same word 3 times across 3 separate interviews spanning 15 years. Intentional. The erasure was being communicated as intentional. Deliberate. Done by someone to something. If the being was dying, why spend its final coherent transmission describing an act of deliberate erasure? Unless what was being erased was important enough that even a dying intelligence wanted someone to know it had happened. Creech did not report the contact. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not for 43 years. 43 years of silence. And he wasn't the only one. Fortescue, the researcher, documented 4 other individuals who she believed had access to the same facility. A physician. A communications technician. An administrative clerk. A civilian specialist. All silent for comparable periods. The silence was not just deafening. It was maintained. As if something in that gray room had reached out and marked them all. As if they knew, without being told, that speaking about it would cost them something they weren't willing to pay. And somewhere in an empty, freshly painted room in a facility that never existed, something was still transmitting. Waiting. For someone to receive. The official story is simple. A weather balloon. Rubber and foil and balsa wood. No beings. No survivors. No supplementary medical annex with a gray painted door. That's what the government wants you to believe. That's what they've been telling us for nearly 80 years. But the documents tell a different story. In 1952, 5 years after Roswell, an internal memorandum was partially released under a Freedom of Information request. The document was almost immediately reclassified and has never been officially restored to the public record. But a single curious phrase was buried in its 3rd paragraph. Condition of subject remains marginal. Communication attempts have yielded inconclusive results, though non-standard transmission modes have not been ruled out. Non-standard transmission modes. In a 1952 document. 5 years after Roswell. If there was nothing biological recovered, what biological containment protocols are we talking about? If there was no subject, what is the condition of? And if nothing was communicating, why is anyone writing memos about the inconclusiveness of communication attempts? The document is ambiguous. The language is deliberately obscuring. But it exists. It was filed. And someone thought it was important enough to reclassify in 1998. The official story begins to collapse under its own weight. What were they hiding? What were they so desperate to keep from the public? Harold Creech wasn't the only one who was silent. Researcher Diane Fortescue documented 4 other individuals who she believed had access to the same facility. A physician. A communications technician. An administrative clerk. A civilian specialist. All 4 were silent for comparable periods. All 4 carried something they couldn't name. The physician spoke first in 1981 to a private researcher. His account was given under conditions of anonymity that have been rigorously maintained. What little filtered back to Fortescue was vague to the point of uselessness. But he confirmed the gray door. The corridor. The sense of something beyond human comprehension. The communications technician never spoke publicly at all. Fortescue learned of his experience only through his widow, who found a handwritten journal in a box of belongings 14 months after his death in 1999. The journal was 11 pages long. Fortescue was allowed to read it once. She was not allowed to photograph it or transcribe it. She sat in a kitchen in Flagstaff, Arizona, in 2003. She read the journal. She was asked to leave it on the table when she departed. She never saw it again. But she remembered one sentence specifically. He wrote, "It isn't that they know something we don't. It's that they remember something we've been made to forget." Something we've been made to forget. What did he mean by that? What had we known once that was taken from us? The technician described a feeling that the being was broadcasting continuously. The way a radio station broadcasts whether or not you have a receiver. Most people simply didn't have the receiver, or didn't know they did. But on certain nights, at certain hours, the signal would strengthen. In those moments, he received what he called flashes of architecture. Not buildings. A different use of the word. Architecture as in structure. Pattern. The underlying skeleton of something too large to see whole. He couldn't say what it belonged to. The civilian specialist is the most elusive figure in this story. Her precise role was never clear to any of the other witnesses. She was contracted, not military. She had access to the facility but wasn't part of the chain of command. What she received, what she knew, what she carried away with her, remains unknown. Fortescue's research notes, published privately in 2011 in a bound edition of approximately 200 copies, document the convergence of these testimonies. The same facility. The same period. The same unexplained contact. The same deliberate silence. The pattern holds. Once you see it, you genuinely cannot unsee it. Across the 7 contact accounts, 3 of them include some variation of the same transmitted emotion. Grief. Not awe. Not fear. Not communication of information. Grief. The outward, deliberate, inexplicable grief. What did it know about us that warranted that response? What did it see that made a dying extraterrestrial intelligence choose mourning as its final message? I tracked down a man named Vernon Quest in Tucson in the spring of 2022. He's now 84 years old. He spent 31 years working in records management for defense contractors. He encountered files that bore a specific classification marking he had never seen documented anywhere. A typographical sequence he drew for me on a napkin. He said those files, whatever their content, shared one common characteristic. They all had origination dates between July and October of 1947. The same 11-week span that includes the Roswell incident. And the content fields had been overwritten with a single repeated character. A 0. Intentional. Deliberate. Erasure. The word Creech used 3 times. Intentional. On the morning of July 18, 1947, the date Creech believed was the day the being died, he reported to his shift. He found that the gray door had been removed. Not opened. Removed. The hinges ground off. The frame bare. The room beyond empty. Cleaned. Freshly painted. Lit by a single overhead lamp. Empty in the way that a space is empty when emptiness has been deliberately installed in it. There was nothing to indicate that the room had ever contained anything. No equipment. No residue. No smell. Nothing. He stood in the doorway for a moment. The pressure behind his eyes was still faintly present. An echo of it. A resonance. He stood there and tried for the first and last time to sense something back. He doesn't know what. He says he didn't know how. He just stood in that empty, freshly painted room and directed something inward and outward simultaneously. Some inarticulate response to the 3 impressions. Some attempt at acknowledgement. He doesn't know if it reached anything. He doesn't know if anything was still there to receive it. He walked back to his post. He never discussed it with anyone for 43 years. He watched the official story solidify around him like concrete around a buried thing. And he let it. Because what else do you do with something that has no language? What did it say? A dying non-human intelligence confined to a gray room in a facility that has never appeared on a single public document chose to transmit 3 impressions. A location underground that isn't underground here. Grief directed outward, at us, specifically and deliberately. And the concept of intentional erasure. Of something important being deliberately removed from the record. 3 impressions. 11 days. 1 witness who spoke about it. For others who carried fragments. An 11-page journal burned or buried or lost in a box in a garage somewhere. Classification markings that don't appear in any official guide. Files with their contents replaced by zeros. What does it all mean? I am not telling you what to conclude. I'm not sure I know what to conclude. The closer I get to this, the more it behaves like something designed to resist conclusion. Like the truth here isn't a destination. It's a direction. A direction that points somewhere none of our existing maps have ever included. If the being knew it was dying, why communicate at all? What did it expect a 24-year-old sergeant from Odessa, Texas, to do with 3 impressions and a lingering pressure behind his eyes? Was the message meant for Creech specifically, or was Creech simply the one who happened to be standing closest to the signal? Was there more? Was the transmission still going when the door was removed and the room was painted and the equipment was carried out and the file contents were replaced with zeros? Is it still going somewhere, broadcasting into whatever space exists between their understanding of the universe and ours? The grief. The outward, deliberate, inexplicable grief. What did it know about us that warranted that response? What did it see, looking out through whatever sense it used to look at the world beyond that gray door, that made a dying extraterrestrial intelligence choose mourning as its final message to our species? What did it know that we don't? What did we know once that we've been made to forget? And is there anyone still out there in a gray room in a corridor that doesn't appear on any map, behind a door that won't have a number on it, still transmitting, still waiting for someone to receive? I think about Creech standing in that empty room. The freshly painted walls. The single overhead lamp. The absence of everything that had been there. And I think about what he tried to send back. An inarticulate response. An attempt at acknowledgement. He didn't know if it reached anything. He didn't know if anything was still there to receive it. But I wonder if the transmission never stopped. I wonder if the being, wherever it came from, whatever it was, left something behind. Not a message in words. Not a warning. Something more profound. A resonance. A frequency. An invitation to remember what we've been made to forget. What did we lose? If the being spent its final coherent hours broadcasting to anyone with the right receiver, what was the content of those transmissions? How much knowledge walks out of the world like that? How much has already gone? Dying without ever telling anyone. Taking whatever they received with them into whatever comes next. I don't know what happened in that room. I don't know who the being was or where it came from or what it was trying to tell us. But I know one thing with absolute certainty. Something happened. Something that changed the course of human history in ways we may never fully understand. And somewhere, in a frequency we've forgotten how to hear, the transmission is still going. Still broadcasting. Still waiting for someone to receive. The question isn't whether it's still out there. The question is whether we still have the capacity to listen.